What if the last 10 Super Bowl winners were all put into one playoff bracket to see who was the best team of the last 10 years, or at least of the Super Bowl winners? That's what I'm going to try to find out today, as I have created this bracket of the last 10 Super Bowl winners, all ranked based off of, how well they did in the regular season, like their record and whatnot, so that they would be seeded correctly. Eventually, I think I'm going to do one for every single Super Bowl winner of all time to see who the best team would be if every single one of them were put into one bracket. Now, this is going to be based off of partially a little bit of their regular season success, a little bit on their playoff success, but also a lot about how they actually played in the Super Bowl. So I think that's probably the most fair way I'll, see who would win. Let's jump right into the first matchup, the 2023 Kansas City Chiefs, the newest Super Bowl champion, versus the 2018 New England Patriots, to decide who will play the 2022 Chiefs. Now, there is definitely a reason that this previous Chiefs team ended up being the last seed, and it's because they were 11-6. Of course, it was a little bit of a rocky regular season, but just like always, they completely just turned on in the playoffs. And a lot of it was the defense, as the last 3 games of the playoffs, they won by 3, 7, and obviously in overtime by 3 in the Super Bowl. And I think overall this is a very solid team with a great defense. The offense may have been a little lackluster, but certainly very clutch. But on the other side, the 2018 Patriots went 11-5 instead of 11-6, obviously because of the 17 versus 16 game schedule. And obviously, as you may know, this was probably the worst Super Bowl of all time. 13-3, I think, was the score. Absolutely terrible. Both offenses couldn't do anything, and it was just really grindy, boring. Nothing happened, and of course, Tom Brady won because he had a better defense, even though he did not play well. I mean, at least during the regular season, they were just a good to fine team. Obviously, Tom Brady was okay, and I mean, their defense obviously took them to a lot of, winning. They won a lot of games with their defense, but in the playoffs, obviously, they definitely turned it on. In the divisional, they destroyed the Chargers pretty much. They beat the Chiefs by 6 in that obviously terrible D Ford game. That was not fun to watch. But, obviously the Super Bowl was terrible. Obviously, this is a weird one because the 2018 Patriots played the 2018 Chiefs, and they won. But obviously, that was a very low-experienced Chiefs team. And, the only reason the Patriots won that game was because of luck and D Ford being offsides. And with the Chiefs being, 5 extra years of experience, I think that they would beat the 2018 Patriots maybe even handily. So they will be moving on to play their 2022 counterparts. Now for the other pre-tournament, game, the 2020 Buccaneers versus the 2015 Denver Broncos. Once again, another Tom Brady team, but this time the Buccaneers. Obviously, in the regular season, there was not like a ton of crazy stuff. They just turned it on late and got lucky, obviously playing the terrible football team, at least in terms of playoff teams, in the wild card round. Then beat the Saints by 10, beat the Packers by 5, and then destroyed the Chiefs in the Super Bowl because of their incredible defense. And once again, Tom Brady was fine all throughout the year, but his defense was just really, really good. But now for the 2015 Broncos, they were 12-4, so they had one more win than the Buccaneers, at least in the regular season. Obviously, this is the year when Peyton Manning was really not great. At all. Just looking at these stats, Brock Osweiler had more passing touchdowns than Peyton Manning on the whole year. That's just insane. Peyton Manning was just not a good quarterback by this point, but he was good enough, just because of how insanely good their defense was. This was a full defense wins championships type of team. And throughout the year, obviously they had some interesting losses, but they were clutch. They played in 3 overtimes in the regular season and won every single one of them. Granted, one was against the Browns, so that's something, and the Bengals, but they did beat the Patriots in overtime, so I guess that's something. But then the playoffs, they locked in, and some close games in the AFC part of the bracket. beating the Steelers by 7 and the Patriots by 2. But then their defense just completely, absolutely smothered the best offense in the league and one of the best offenses of the decade in the Panthers. So, I don't know. I think with two very, very defensive teams, it might just be the better defense. And I think the Broncos' defense was way better. Their offense was so much worse than the Buccaneers, which makes it even more insane that the Broncos won one more game and the Super Bowl at all. So I think I would probably pick the 2015 Broncos over the Buccaneers, which means that they will now play another Tom Brady team in the 2016 Patriots. Now onto the wild card, as, playoffs are now really set. So let's just get into the 5th versus 4th seed, the 2021 Rams versus the 2019 Kansas City Chiefs. And both of these teams had 12 wins, one just had one more loss, as it was obviously the 17 games. But first, looking at the 2021 Rams, obviously they were 12-5, and this was obviously a very interesting team, as this was a purely off-season built, like, free agency team, as obviously they added Von Miller, Matthew Stafford, and then in 1 year they win the Super Bowl. So it was an interesting one, obviously, but it worked very well for them. They had a pretty solid regular season all in all, and then they beat the interesting Cardinals team. They obviously beat the Buccaneers on, their last old legs, and then they got very lucky against the Niners, as they barely pulled it out there. And then the Bengals just failed to move the ball against their defense, and they ended up winning 23-20 in the Super Bowl. So, a very, very solid team, a little bit of luck, a little bit of everything, honestly. Probably an average Super Bowl team, as they had a little bit of everything that was necessary to win. But they had some great players. Obviously, Cooper Kupp, one of the best years for a receiver ever, and Matthew Stafford with a fantastic year as well. Now for the Chiefs' second Super Bowl of all time, the first of this dynasty and this century as well. And obviously this was their youngest form in terms of winning a Super Bowl. They were 12-4, very, very solid, and some great games when you think about it. They had a fantastic regular season for the most part. And then the playoffs, obviously, the incredible game against the Texans. They beat the Titans in the championship game, which, maybe not the best opponent, but then they pretty much destroyed the Niners. It was a bit of a comeback, but it was, an 11-point game by the end, so a very, very good team. Patrick Mahomes was at the top of his game. Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill at the top of their game. And, just a fantastic team. Maybe not the best defense in the world, but it was still pretty good. And I think that with the Rams really just being in multiple games 1 or 2 plays away from losing in the divisional, the conference championship, or even the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs really not leaving a lot of breathing room for their opponents throughout the playoffs, I think I'd probably choose the 2019 Chiefs over the 2021 Rams. And they will be playing the winner of this next matchup, the 2017 Eagles versus the 2014 Patriots. Once again, another 12-win Patriots team, I think. Well, I don't know if there's another one, but another 12-win team. As, again, just another Tom Brady team. And obviously, this was a team with Tom Brady winning the MVP, so, he was pretty good. And obviously, Rob Gronkowski and Brandon LaFell. Okay, I guess, I don't know who Brandon LaFell is, but he had almost 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns, so good job by him. And just a solid, good Super Bowl winning regular season for the most part. They started out 2-2. Last 4 games ended 3-2. So, yeah, it was good. But then the playoffs, they barely beat the Ravens in that. And then they destroyed the strange Colts team, obviously. And then the Tom Brady bullfuckery took full effect in the Super Bowl as they somehow beat the Seahawks, even though their defense was crumbling. And the Seahawks just was like, no, we've already had a Super Bowl. You guys can have your 5th or whatever. So, yeah, I just, again, stupid, very stupid, but Patriots had almost nothing to do with winning that Super Bowl, at least on the last couple plays. So, but now for my Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, baby, our first Super Bowl ever. And this was a very, very good team in the regular season. Obviously, lost Carson Wentz, but then Nick Foles went 2-1 in the last few weeks of the regular season, even beating the Rams as he had to fill in. Falcons game, a little bit not great. Had to get a little bit of luck there as Julio Jones dropped a jump ball that usually he would go up and get. But our defense was still really, really good there. But then completely dismantled the Vikings. I mean, it was an interesting Vikings team, but they still had a very good defense. And then, obviously, one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. Beat the Patriots as Nick Foles went off. And we avoided being bullshitted by Tom Brady's black magic. And ended up winning a Super Bowl against him. And, I mean, I think I would have to use the Nick Foles version of this team. Because I was obviously in the playoffs. And that was a very, very good team. And, I mean, the Patriots, they were definitely solid. We had a very similar postseason to them. Again, like, you know, barely winning in the first round, destroying our opponent in the championship game, and then a very, very close all-time Super Bowl. But I don't know, man. This is a tight matchup. But I think, I don't know. I do think that if these two teams were to play in a Super Bowl, it would be similar, you know, very, very competitive. But based off of what happened in 2017, because I do think that the 2017 Patriots team was better than the 2014 Patriots team, I think the Eagles would probably beat the Patriots again in this. So I think I'm going to pick the Eagles. Go Birds. Now to the teams that just made it in, starting with the 2023 Chiefs taking on the 2022 Chiefs. And I mean, it is kind of funny that these teams, obviously this team won back-to-back, with one being the best of the last decade and one being the worst of the last decade in terms of ranking. But starting with the 2022 Chiefs, the best team of the decade that won based off of rankings, they went 14-3, fantastic year. And I mean, in the playoffs, obviously they got an interesting one against the Jaguars, but then they beat the Bengals in a thriller, and then beat us, the Eagles, who I think were a fantastic team in another great all-time Super Bowl. But then the 23 Chiefs, obviously 3 less wins, and it just wasn't as good of a team. They obviously had closer games in the playoffs, and I think probably would just be the better team than the 2022 Chiefs. It probably would make sense. There's a reason that 22 Chiefs are number 1 and the 23 Chiefs are number 10. But now for the 2016 Patriots versus the 2015 Broncos. Now I've already talked about the 2015 Broncos, but obviously they were pretty solid. Not a good offense, but an incredible defense that is the entire reason why they won a Super Bowl. But now for the 2016 Patriots, again a very good team. Tom Brady won an MVP, as I mean he had a good year, I'd say. Just, you know, checkdowns, not throwing interceptions. Only 2 on the year, at least in the regular season, but other than that, he was fine. And their 2 best playmakers were obviously LeGarrette Blount with 1,000 yards, as well as Julian Edelman with 1,000 receiving yards. Obviously a very, very good defense with a lot of Pro Bowlers across the board, as they went 14-2. And in the playoffs, they pretty much destroyed the Texans, almost doubling their score. Actually doubling their score. They beat the Steelers in the championship game, once again completely destroying them, and also doubling their score, basically, I think. Is that? Almost. Something like that. And then in the bullshit Super Bowl, where Tom Brady got so insanely lucky, of course he did his job, but Julian Edelman should have not caught that pass. That was insane. It was a bad pass and should have been picked off. The Falcons completely shot themselves in the foot, and the Patriots just really stumbled their way into winning that one. But they did a good job stumbling, I guess. But, I mean, I don't know. I think this would be a very close one, as it would be a very good offense versus one of, if the best defenses of the decade. So, I don't know. I don't think the Broncos, though, would be able to do pretty much anything against the defense of the Patriots. So, I think that just the fact that the Patriots have a good offense and a great defense, and the Broncos have a great defense and a bad offense. Unfortunately, I think I do have to go with the Patriots only because the Broncos just did not have a good defense at all, or a good offense at all. Now into the final four with two Chiefs teams and the Eagles and the Patriots. And I guess we'll start out at the 3 versus the 4. The 2017 Birds versus the 2019 Chiefs. Obviously, two very, very good teams. The Chiefs were 12-4, and the Eagles were 13-3. And again, Chiefs, a fantastic defense, offense. I mean, once again, the Eagles went against a very, very good offense in the Super Bowl, and their offense was just better. So, I mean, I guess throughout the regular season, I mean, this would have just been such an exciting matchup to see, but, oh, man, I don't know, this is one of the toughest ones so far. I mean, both of these teams just really dominated their way to the Super Bowl, and I really don't know, man. And I'm going to try to not be biased, but I do think that the Eagles have the better team. I mean, I don't know if they would have the better quarterback, but with how Nick Foles was playing that run, it's like not a lot of quarterbacks played that well in the playoffs, and have ever played that well in the playoffs. So, I mean, this Eagles team was really just lightning in a bottle with how well they played with, I mean, maybe not as much talent as other great teams. I mean, they were still very, very talented. Because I'm just kind of getting stuck on, I don't know if the Chiefs defense would be able to, stop the Eagles offense, because the Chiefs defense was good enough where they did not have to worry about close games pretty much at all throughout the postseason. And the Eagles offense also really didn't have to worry about that because they were just dominating the whole way through, and then teams, had to play catch-up ball, and that, didn't work out for them. Especially in the Super Bowl, the Patriots just couldn't catch up to the Eagles the whole time. I mean, obviously it was such a short time span with how well they were playing, but who would have beat them in those time periods? I mean, the Patriots, one of the greatest dynasties of all time, and Tom Brady's greatest Super Bowl ever by far. I mean, he played insanely well, and people say he's the greatest quarterback of all time, and he lost playing his absolute best. I just think, I'm really trying not to be biased, but I honestly do think that I would have picked the Eagles to win, even if I was maybe even a Chiefs fan. I don't know, but I just think that run for the Eagles was so insanely incredible that I don't think the 2019 Chiefs would have won. I don't think they would have. But now to decide who will play those Eagles in the championship, the 2022 Chiefs versus the 2016 Patriots. Obviously going into this, two very, very good teams, two 14-win teams at, I think, the height of both of their dynasties, in terms of at least when they won the Super Bowl. And, I mean, it's a tough one. It's a very tough one. But, I mean, with how good the Chiefs' offense was, obviously Mahomes, MVP, or Travis Kelce was insane. Even Juju Smith-Schuster was on that and had 903 yards, 33 yards. I just, again, if this were the Super Bowl and these teams were playing how they were playing, I don't think the Patriots would have been able to come back against the Falcons, because the Chiefs were a team that just did not make mistakes. And, I mean, the Falcons, they also had a fantastic offense, but I just don't think the Chiefs would have. I think the Chiefs would have gotten out to the same lead, but I think they would have kept it, because I think they would have had a better defense than the Falcons. I think that the 2022 Chiefs were better than the 2016 Patriots. That now leaves us with the 2022 Chiefs, who beat the Eagles to play the Eagles of 2017. And this would be a fantastic game, because, I mean, the Eagles, when they played the 2022 Chiefs, were one of our best teams of all time. We were playing insanely well. I mean, Jalen Hurts had a Nick Foles-esque run in the Super Bowl. He was aside from like one mistake maybe, he was playing his absolute balls out. I mean, he was insane. But I mean, again, I don't know if the Eagles would have been able to beat the Chiefs. I really don't think they would have been able to. I mean, it is tough. It is very tough. Because if I'm looking at it this way, the 2017 Eagles were obviously lightning in a bottle, but I don't think that they were as good as the 2022 Eagles when we lost to the Chiefs. And I think, I mean, I don't know. It's very difficult. But I think the best Super Bowl winner of the last 10 years was the 2022 Kansas City Chiefs, as they would knock off the 2017 Eagles to become the current era champions. So there you have it. The final tournament of what I would think would happen if these teams were to all face off in a tournament. And I think it's pretty cool. I think this is honestly accurate with a lot of these games. So let me know what you think. Let all the Tom Brady lovers / Patriots fans tell me how they think. Obviously, I think I know how they think. And all the Eagles haters as well. Love to see it. But anyway, I'm glad I did this 2 weeks before the actual Super Bowl. So yeah, but I do want to do a full all-time thing. So there's 3 more eras, I think. So I think I'll do that in separate videos and then put them all into one final battle royale to see who the best Super Bowl winner of all time was. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.